we'll just give everyone a few minutes to roll in while as we get this going, and I will announce momentarily that we can say hello to everybody, but good more formally. A couple of housekeeping items that for everyone, all the attendees that are in the audience, and I'll repeat this again later as everyone rolls in. Feel free to put any questions you have, feel free to put them in the chat. We will obviously try to address as many of them as we can throughout the process, I will make sure that I bring it to Paula's attention, so that way we're all on the same page. But otherwise, just giving it another minute or two to make sure that we have all the attendees in place, and we can get going. And Paula, you know I'm going to pick on you first, so that way it's keeps it simple.
Yes, go ahead.
So what I'll do, just in the interest of time, and some of this will be repeated as we go through, so it won't be too much of a problem. I will start with some quick introductions and just thanking everyone for coming, and then all our panelists will introduce themselves quickly, and we'll go from there. So thank you everyone for joining us today. This is our third annual webinar for business development for lawyers. And it's been a bit of the evolution. For those of you that were here in 2020, you'll remember saying, how do we do business development during COVID? Last year, it was business development coming out of COVID, because we thought we were just about out of COVID at the time. And now, as that has evolved in the new era, in the modern way, the hybrid way, and the challenges that we're encountering. So we have a very exciting panel for you today, and I'll actually ask them to introduce themselves, but I'll start with our moderator and chair for today, Paula Pepeng, and I'll ask Paula to introduce herself. Go ahead, Paula.
Thank you, Gary. So hi, everyone. Really great to see you. I'm looking forward to this conversation with everyone. So Paula Pépin, I'm a lawyer as well. I spent my life in-house and recently crossed into the light, and I'm now the founder of LegsGo. And so what we do at LegsGo is we do kind of two things. We coach and mentor in-house counsel through a structured program, and then we also take on various transformation projects. So that's, in a nutshell, what we do at LegsGo. So should we ask everybody else to give a quick introduction?
Yeah, so I can actually go with Chad next, because I'm going with the way the squares appear on my screen.
Perfect.
Thanks, Gary and Paula. My name's Chad Aboud. I'm the general counsel of Audience View, and that is a portfolio of tech companies that supports the live event space around the world.
Thank you, Chad. And Aaron, you're the next box.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron Baines. I'm a partner in the capital markets group at Erdem Burles with a focus on venture lending and equity and private M&A.
Thank you, Aaron. Carol, or Carole, I've been joking with Carol. I'm like, do I say the French way, the English way? And she gets both. So I'm going to call her both today.
I love it. Thank you. Carol Piavizan, I'm the managing partner at Inc. Law and principal at Inc. Consulting. My practice focuses on all aspects of data law, cyber readiness, data governance, and AI risk management.
And I will do just a quick introduction of myself. I know some of you have been at our previous webinars. Gary Kalati, I'm the CEO at Alexa, lawyer by trade, but have been an entrepreneur for most of my professional career. And Paula, on that note, I will let you take it from here.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So when we talk about business development, I always like to start with the client perspective. So my first question would be probably for Chad. I'd love to hear from an in-house perspective. What do you think good business development look like? What are you actually looking for when you're talking to outside counsel trying to get your business?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess my mindset on this is I'm looking for three things. I'm looking for curiosity, humility, and proven innovation. And so what I mean by that is that I was at Castles Brock. I was on the service provider side as well. And I know that industry is the legal services industry. It's not the tech industry. It's not the mining industry. It's not any of those other industries. And while you can focus on certain industries, you're in the legal services one. So it's actually unrealistic and incorrect for me to assume and for providers to think that they know how my industry operates because they're not in it. They're in a different one, and vice versa is true. And so what I'm looking for to get the confidence that my advisor is going to provide me something that's useful is step one, curiosity. They've got to want to learn about my industry more than they may think they know, simply because they're not in it and I operate in it. And the second one, and what that kind of shows me if they're willing to do that, is humility. You know, I'm not going to an advisor to be kind of had the finger wagged at me. I'm going to someone to say, like, that advisor knows a lot about what they do. What they do is one slice of what impacts my industry. And I need to see the humility of knowing that legal is just one element that, even as a general counsel, I think about customer support, about product. I think about all the lenses. And so I need that humility and curiosity. Number one, because it resonates for me from a style perspective, but two, without it, I'm not confident I'm going to get a good product, because how is the advisor going to know and going to frame up for me something that's useful if it's not driven by their learning from what I'm explaining about the way my industry and company operates? So I'm really looking for those things. And now what I'm also looking for is proven innovation. Not telling me that it's innovative, but I want to see it. I want to know it. I want to understand how you mean. For me, I've implemented automated contracting that comes out of our CRM tool with legal tech bolted on top. It's an actual thing. And since I'm a tech company, if you want to be an advisor to a tech company, I want to understand how you're using tech, because it gives me more confidence that if you're a user or a creator of technology, you probably have a better sense of how technology companies work. And that's what those three things give me a lot of confidence, because I know everyone's smart, but I want to know how the smarts can actually be delivered. And those three things give me a lot of confidence, or not, about whether I'm going to get that thing.
I like that, Chad. And it reminds me of several times I've interviewed in different contexts, private practice lawyers that want to get a job in-house, right? And often what they're going to do is summarize all of their accomplishments, right? And everything they've done. And it's kind of the same thing as in business development. We know you're smart. We know you've done all the work, but how can you then tie this into how you're making this relevant in our industry, in our company, and how you can actually make a change? So I really like that. That's great. Carol and Aaron, so flipping it to you, what's your perspective from a private practice perspective of what good business development looks like? Carol, do you want to start?
Sure. I think so. What Chad is saying really resonates and sort of warms my heart in a sense, because the approach that we take is very much being like authentic relationship builders. And I don't know if that's the term I really like, but I'm going to go with it for right now, because what it means is that Inc as a name, INQ as a name, is derived from the word to be inquisitive. So we have two very fundamental corporate values. The first is to be curious, and the second is to get excited. So the sort of, I hate my job attitude is not very welcome in our space. We are all about, do you care about your clients? Do you care about the work you're doing? Do you look at it from different perspectives? Are you curious? Like, are you genuinely curious about what you're doing? And are you genuinely curious about the people you're working with? And does it make you excited? When you wake up in the morning, is it the thing that you want to do, right? If the answer is no, there are a million other law firms you can go to. We're probably not the right shop, because what we do is by and large, we do lots of traditional privacy and cyber work, but we also do a lot of very cutting edge stuff that forces you to think and sort of step outside of your comfort zone. So that, I think, shapes the approach that we take to business development, in the sense that we're not very good at the traditional outings. So I don't know how to play golf. I swear I will learn. Because I think it would be interesting and fun, but I haven't mastered it yet. So it's not my go-to, but I do want to find other things that people may like. And so I will always go to my clients and ask them, like, what's missing? What would be fun? What would be interesting? What would be different? And then I try to seize on that. I also like the little surprises, hey, I'm just checking in. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not, I don't have any major update. I'm just checking in to see how you're doing. And and just to be clear, I don't do that as like, like a reminder that comes up saying, did you check in with so-and-so? It's actually because that person just popped into my mind. I'm like, I wonder how they're doing. I'm going to pop out and ask them. So there is that authenticity, right? And then fundamentally, it's about trying to help them solve their legal problems, and where we can solve business problems, we are always thinking about those different aspects. And in fact, I will turn to people like Chad and get that kind of advice to say, if I were to do this type of pitch with you, what would resonate? Like, what I'm going to talk about it from my perspective, but 9 times out of 10, he's got some other perspective I hadn't even thought of. And I'm like, that's a great idea. I'm going to incorporate that into my discussion. So trying to get that feedback, maybe Chad, that is the humility you're talking about, where it's like, I actually don't know the answer to this question. And I'm curious if there's another way to do it that would add value to my clients. But at the same time, sort of deepen that relationship that I think is so fundamental to the practice of law. So those are some examples that we bring in our business development processes that also are very fundamental to our culture.
Before we go to you, Erin, the question we'll talk about fees later, but tell me how it works, because doing this takes time, right? And I know that sometimes as the client, when we chit chat, I'm like, uh-oh, is the clock running? Like, how do you approach this with clients?
I really believe I always say I'm a consumer at heart. So I always act like a consumer. So I don't like being charged for chit chat. I like the chit chat. I just don't want to be charged for it. And I bake that in. So I bake that perspective into what I do. If I'm sort of leading the chit chat and I'm doing it because I'm enjoying that moment, then that's my investment in the relationship. And I believe that we make those investments. If it's part of the overall, relationship as to value add, and you're sort of intermingling some of the value add and so on, then, maybe a part of it gets billed. If you're calling me with a 5-minute question or a 10-minute question, I never bill that time, because it's a quick and dirty, and it's just a way to get you from A to B really fast. And I want you to think of me, and it's not a big deal. Especially if it's top of mind, it takes me no time. Let me just get it to you so you can move on with your day, and I can feel good about what I've done. I do feel good about that. So when it comes to, certainly, especially as you're a growing practice and a growing firm, there's a lot of business development that you put in, like a lot of time that you put into your business development. And I see that as like an investment with an amazing return. So I have no problem making that investment.
I like that. It is truly an investment that yields a great ROI. I completely agree. Erin, your thoughts on what good BD looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think of it. I mean, you might see this recurring throughout the answer. There's 3 things that I think are important. There's always usually 3 things. And from my perspective, the first thing is what also Cahal talked about, and Chad as well, to me, is fundamentally being genuine in your business development, right? Now, Carol talked about something about, someone pops into your mind, you respond to them. I use that strategy for most of my career so far, a very short career, but so far I've used that. That's now become a challenge to me, because there's too many variables now. I meet somewhere between 10 to 20 people at an event. I go to upwards of 6 conferences a year, not to mention at least probably an event a week, which would bring me to over 50 events plus the conferences, 55, almost 1,000 people a year. I just can't remember now. And so I was at a conference in Richmond, Virginia, and the managing partner of a Dutch law firm said, he was making a joke. Well, he wasn't actually making a joke. He was being very sincere. He said, when I left from meeting you yesterday, I wrote down in my Excel chart, met Erin Baines, Richmond, Virginia, future managing partner. And I laughed. I said, you're being too kind to me, Erwin. But he told me, he said, if you're not already doing this, you should, because you will forget and you just want to keep track. And so using things like that, metrics in your calendar, to me doesn't sound disingenuous, because if you're just like me, you rely on things like that now to remember personal things too, people's birthdays and stuff like that. But I would just say genuine. And just to close the point on genuine, last night I had dinner with somebody that I have known now I had to go to LinkedIn right when we started this panel to see when did I connect with him. July 18, 2018. I think I met him before we connected officially on LinkedIn. Last night, the last thing he said to me, he said, people don't do BD the way you do. He said, I feel like, we must have connected 5 years ago. You look how much we know about each other's life. Now I'm getting a file from him 5 years later. And we're having a call tomorrow to talk about it. And then he told me he's promised me they're going to roll out a whole new series of investments. I'm going to be the guy that's going to roll out the investment strategy, prepare the paperwork, and do those investments for that fund. And it was because I never talked about business. I got to learn what he liked because I like the same things. And I told him, I said, something that people miss is they think they have to know everyone in the room very well, when the reality is you have to be kind to everybody in the room, but only some of them will become long-term relationships for you, the people you actually have something in common with. But if I don't have something in common with Heather, it's okay. But if she needs something, I should go out of my way to help her, because if I have a contact that can help her, that's just a good, right thing to do, right? So being genuine, I think, is very important, building that relationship. The other thing is, once you've been genuine and now Chad is calling me about something or asking me a question, right? Providing them with a useful answer, which sounds very easy, but for us is very difficult, because we have, our whole profession is built on risk and insurance, and ensuring our own risk and mitigating our clients' risk. But in providing a useful answer is, these are the three things that you could possibly do. These are the risk levels that are associated with them. My gut is leaning towards this, but it's totally up to you. If you want to talk about more about the risk, we can. I can do my best to try and quantify it, but it won't be certain. But here are kind of the risks that lie in front of you and what you could do. And you can only do that, like Chad was saying, by knowing their business, right? Another great contact I met years and years, we just had a lot. First thing I did was I went to Mississauga, went to their renewable storage energy site, and I said, I have known nothing about engineering and science. Teach me. And then we'll get a bagel and coffee afterwards. But show me what the heck you guys are doing in this thing, and just learning a little bit about it. So being genuine, providing business focused solutions. And the last thing is, it's a common theme you'll see later in my answers, is being transparent in your communications. All of this is just relationship building, whether it's in your household, at school, on the schoolyard, right? Or in your professional relationships. But being transparent. When the fees are high, don't scare yourself and not tell the client. Just tell them. Say, something happened. I don't know what's going on, but the fees are very high. I'm going to look into this. If I can't, let me know what you need me to do on your end. Or, these are the answers and this is what's happened. What would you like us to do? Just be very open and honest as you can with your communications. It resolves a lot of issues and helps you maintain that genuine relationship that you've been building over many, many years.
This is great, Aaron. And I want to build on something you mentioned about the events. I coach a lot of younger general counsel that are often soloing their role and kind of starting from there. And the events piece is also a great way for in-house counsel to build their own network, because I would say, Chad, I'd love your thought, or Heather, but the best outside counsel I've retained are actually people I met at events. And that's how we started building the relationship. And that's how I got to know them. And then we eventually became closer. And then that's how I ended up farming out my work. But Chad, have you had that experience also to meet great outside counsel at those events,
So I guess for me is I've become like less focused on where I meet people rather than how I've met them. And so I think what I'm looking for is like a selflessness and moving away from like a scarcity model. So the ways that this like has shown itself to me are like, so I was at Indigo before Audience View. And if an advisor, whether they're like a current advisor or prospective advisor, goes to a store and shoots me a picture of them at a store being like, we worked on this, or we were talking about this, it says it to me, like, I can tell that like their mind like clicks into like the relationship. Now, the more current way that this is happening for me is online through LinkedIn. So I'm looking for people who are being proactively helpful on LinkedIn. Are they sharing 101 and 102 level experiences, tips, ideas which demonstrates not only do they have like that knowledge, but also that they're trying to better the industry, because there's no guaranteed, kickback out of that. And so there's a major law firm out in the EU, UK, that one of the partners who has a cross-border practice with North America started engaging with some of my content. And I just sent a massive recommendation to him. Like, that's how it started. And so I didn't even know him from before that, but he used selflessness. Of course, there's like, everybody has some sort of longer medium-term plan here, but he used, without any guaranteed result, engaging with my content, which was only better for me at the time, to start to build that interest and relationship, which then over a period of just like 6 months, I ended up sending an opportunity to him. And so for me, it's less about where I meet them rather than how people are showing up.
I like that. And this actually goes straight to the next question, is about how to build relationship, because BD is about that right? How to build those relationships with people. And Heather, maybe we'll give you a quick second to introduce yourself before we go to that question. Do you want to say a quick note?
Sure, yes, thank you. So thanks everyone. I'm Heather Yamoa and I'm Senior Legal Counsel at TMX. So happy to join you guys and be part of the discussion.
Thanks, Heather. And so the question I have maybe again for the in-house crew, which is Chad and Heather, if you think back about the firms that you've had the best relationship with, what was their secret sauce? Like, how did they actually build that really strong relationship with you? Heather?
I'll jump in. So a key is just becoming a real person. So there's, I don't know, 20,000 lawyers in Ontario. You can go to the top 10 list or, the rated lawyers for each category of law, and you'll see 50 names on the list, but they're not people until you actually meet them. They come off the page. They're more than a LinkedIn profile, more than, a law firm profile. So becoming a real person, because at the end of the day, it's relationships with people. So if I'm getting an email and I'm reading it, I want to hear your voice when I'm reading it, or see your personality coming through, or what you're saying in the email, as opposed to just a dry email where I'm like, okay, here's the advice. Next question I have. I won't be like running to go ask you because I don't know you and I don't know what advice you're going to give me. Whereas if I kind of have a relationship where I understand where you're coming from, what this means, I'll be more inclined to then have more questions, continue. Like, for example, I got a referral within a firm one time and I'm like, okay, within the firm, this is great. We can ask this specialty question to the specific lawyer. But because there was no relationship there, it just wasn't a really beneficial experience in terms of, okay, I got the answer, but it's like, okay, I couldn't recommend this lawyer. I don't really know them. The answer was just dry. There was nothing to it. So you want that value out of being a person, not just a listing or a recommended lawyer. You want to be a real person that I'll go back to and have a relationship and work with in the future. So
that's great. Chad, any thoughts?
I love that. So I'm big on that one. I think another one that's really proven to work well for me is an advisor that wants to work with me to come up with a structure on the way we work together. So here's an example. So I was taking over a portfolio in an area of law that I didn't know about 6 years ago. And the two senior people, both in-house and at the advisor, were about to move off of that portfolio, and me and the other person about to take over. And we got together for coffee, and I just said, I used my own humility to say, like, hey, I didn't grow up in this world. I'm going to need some guidance here from you. And if it takes longer for you, and therefore I have to pay you a bit more in order for you to give it to me in a way that I can digest it at this stage of my career, that's cool for me, because that incremental spend to me is nothing compared to the value of me actually learning about this. Because then I need to, advisors have to remember that, I've got to take all of this and then build out all kinds of things in a business process, information, presentations, working. I've got a lot of stuff to do. And so if you can give this to me in a way that I can digest it, then great. And so we figured out a style of working and how our communication will work together, the cadence of when we would get together, what I truly needed from her in order to get myself up to speed, because she was already a specialist in it. So she can blow through things much quicker than I can. So I think it's about understanding how often and in what style and for what purposes someone's going to use information. Because if you can deliver the how, you already know the what. If you can deliver the how, then as a consumer and a buyer of your service, I'm very sticky to you, because I can get information from anyone. I can't understand, use, and deploy information very easily from many advisors across the advisor scale, because they are such experts in what they do. They're just giving it to me with that level of specificity and detail without thinking about the implementation of it. So for me, it's like, how are you going to do it with me in a way that works for me too? Because otherwise it just dies at the end of the phone call. So that's very sticky for me.
I like that, because it ties to the question of where do outside counsel fail when they come to you? And on that, I personally have seen so many outside counsel that are transactional. It's like project in, project out, contract in, contract out. And then there's no conversation around the strategic plan, the projects, and everything else that you have to do. Any thoughts, Heather and Chad, on where you think they actually fail?
definitely on the follow-up, like you said, if it's just transactional and the contract's signed and you might not even hear from the lawyer after that, then it's okay. Well, it's harder to be as sticky and go back. So if you follow up and say, how did this deal go? How's the implementation been? What are the next steps? Do you have any follow-up questions? Anything I can help you with? That kind of extra step will make a big difference and make you stick out and stand out in the crowd versus somebody who just, here's the file, sign it, done, and you're gone. So
I think that's bang on. I would also add, like, where is like the 360 review from that interaction? Because like you got to do it then, right? You can't wait till later. There's always going to be things that went great, and on both sides, there's always going to be things that the client didn't do well either. And if you take that moment right then to be like, okay, so there's obviously going to be things that went well. There's going to be things we all could have done better, and things that we learned. Can we like come up with 1 point for each? Because any reasonable client is going to have, their own things they could have done better too. And I think if you bring those out, you're creating like a human bond because you're learning together and you're like creating some level of vulnerability, which most humans just by their DNA connect with. And then you actually learn. And so instead of doing the same thing over and over and over again without knowing what's good, you should double down on that. What's bad, you should change on that on both sides. Then how does it ever get better? And the problem is then you're doing a lot of work without a sticky client. So you've got a client who's always thinking to themselves, I'm 1 email away from looking somewhere else. If I'm an advisor, that is a waste of my energy to have a client relationship like that. I'd want a client who's like always feeling very sticky, and that comes through like reflections on what happened. I think, Heather made a great point, is you can capture that part that Heather talked about in that reflection too. Like, okay, so what happened? How did it deploy out? Like, what did we learn from that we could have done differently on our end the next time? And so you can like fold it together.
Paula, if I may add just one thing, having seen some of these scenarios, in-house counsel adds more value to the business by understanding the challenges of the business really well and their day-to-day and sort of having that lens business view of it versus becoming the no department. By the same token, external counsel supporting in-house counsel has to understand their challenges really well. They have to understand, so if I'm supporting Chad, I have to know what Chad is good at, what are areas that he doesn't have expertise, and that's the opportunity to augment. Whether I can do it at a personal level, I'm speaking in this context as if I were a lawyer in private practice, or maybe some of my colleagues, right? Because that's the other thing. It's you bring in the right expertise and say, here's what it is. And genuinely, if that expertise doesn't exist at your firm, to say, you know what, for this, go somewhere else, because I'm building trust with you here. It's not about just getting all your business, it's about getting all the right business that we can do really well and deliver well, and that you can rely on us to truly deliver value.
100%. And to build on what Chad was saying, I would actually call this innovation. Like, it's innovation in the way you provide services, because I would have been blown away if one of our outside counsel came to me and said, let's do a bit of a retro on how that M&A went. What do you think went well? Where should we have improved? I would have been blown away. I've never had this opportunity. And in business, retros happen all the time. There's a big project and then the team's going to get together and we're going to do a good retro of it. And so that's a very small tip that you can incorporate in your practice, and just doing that will help building that practice. So I really like that. That's great. Carol and Aaron, I'd love to hear a perspective of how your firms are helping young lawyers to get better with BD. It's not easy, especially in the time of COVID, where still a lot of things are being done remotely. We're just starting to do the in-person. But what do you think firms can do to help support young lawyers with business development?
So I'm happy to go first, but I have to say, like, listening to this conversation, one theme that is striking me, if I can summarize it in my own, because I'm taking notes and trying to take it all in. You don't get this very often. So this is like great for everybody in the audience. It's actually really great for me too. So the one thing I'm hearing a lot is that we can distinguish ourselves as external counsel on the basis of our expertise, but actually you're only like 40% of the way there, or maybe 30% of the way there. You have to actually distinguish yourself as a person, right? Like, how do I like you? And there's so much research on likability and the connection between likability and success. Define success as you will. But it's something that that's really resonating. It's like, well, how, like, not only are you likable, but are you likable vis-a-vis me? Like, are you making me feel better? Do you make me feel like my life is not only easier, but actually the work I'm doing is valuable? So that's just a theme I'm hearing. And if I've got it wrong, then please correct me, but it's certainly something I've taken note of. In terms of more junior lawyers, I really think we need to give people opportunity. Like if you look at all the discussion around women in the profession, what is the number one thing? Like we've often talked about this time and again. And my own approach was, I don't need your programs. I just need the chance. Just give me the opportunity. If I can't swim, that's fine. But I'm pretty sure I can. So just give me the shot and let me go for it. So I think I'm very big on, if, for instance, I get lots of speaking engagements, and one came my way and I thought, it doesn't have to be me. This can absolutely be you. I will help you prepare if you are uncomfortable. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to stick you out there if in something you're not happy to do, but get your name out there if that's what you want. Do it to your way. You know, I like speaking, but others like writing. So I always tell them, you don't have to emulate anybody in particular. You can do it your way and it's still successful. You want to write? You want to blog? You want to TikTok? I have no idea what that is, but by all means, go do it if you think it'll work. Like, there's got to be, you have to allow that person to come out, because it's going to work differently for everyone. The other thing that I'm really big on is, if giving the opportunity to go to different conferences and to, give them some talking points if they want to have that hook, right? So that then we can have a broader meeting. And when we have that meeting, trying to facilitate their inclusion in that discussion. It's not just between me and the new contact now. Like, let's figure out, what are we going to be talking to them about and how are we going to do it? We also always give a BD budget where we say, spend it as you wish. And sort of no question, go do it. But just bear in mind that the point is that you're building this relationship with somebody. We've also invested in BD coaching. So it was very specific for our most, not our most junior, it was sort of like less than mid-level, like probably 3 to 5 years, where we specifically paid for some coaching just to support their comfort, right? Like, give the confidence and support the comfort, but also to give that space to figure out what BD looks like for you. As I said before, we're not going to be successful if we force everybody to do it the same way. They've got to figure out what makes it work for them. So helping people come up with tools and strategies and thoughts around what BD looks like, but then helping them do it in a way that feels very genuine, so that they can feel comfortable and not like a fish out of water, terrified of public speaking and now having to give 10 speeches a day. Like, that's not going to work. You're going to hate it. You're not going to get excited about anything. So we're really trying those different strategies to help, frankly, anybody in our firm engage more with our clients. We don't even call it BD. We really just call it about, like, how do we engage with our clients? How do we continue that relationship and really let them know what we're doing?
I love that. Because I do think it shouldn't be called BD. It should be called building relationships, right? That's what it is. Aaron, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I have very similar thoughts. I can provide a few like specific examples that might help the audience. I will also echo Carol's point initially about the relationship and human edge of thing, and Heather's point about knowing the person. I learned very quickly, and pardon my français here, lawyers can be assholes sometimes. I very rarely swear, but you have to emphasize that point, because we can be. Because you look at the computer, you see a screen that gives you discontent, hurts your eyes, it's not naturally designed to be pleasing, it's not the Mona Lisa, it's literally something that functions as work. Then the telephone is ringing all the time, it's a naturally annoying noise, right? And all these things. And if you don't know who's on the other line of that, you will respond in a human reaction to the annoying things in front of you with some degree of discontent, right? And so immediately when I started transactions a long time ago, I realized I'm going to call these lawyers right off the bat. Boom. Chad, hey, saw you're on the other side for those guys. Just let you know, Aaron Baines, haven't worked together yet. Really looking forward to it. We'll send you an email. Nothing to have on this call. But listen, I'm in Toronto. I'll send you. I saw you also know this person I know. Anyways, Monday we'll get to you. Have a wonderful weekend. Okay, one layer of connection. Then if I ever went to Vancouver or wherever, let's say Chad was there, and he worked opposite for me, went out of my way to meet him every time for a coffee. I want them to see my face when we're doing a transaction and vice versa, because I don't want them to be rude and I don't want to be rude, right? When I go back to them, I think before I say something. I think about the leniencies we can give them in the transactions and those we can't, and how I'm going to explain it to them. And all of this also applies to within the firm, by the way. If you have colleagues and whatnot in your management in your firm, meet everybody. They'll leave if they don't know you, right? And they'll go somewhere else, and that's very expensive, right? Internally, to lose a client and or a lawyer is very expensive. So sometimes building that stickiness comes with honey, a little bit of sweet talk and being genuine and honest about it. But I always found that, and I had no problem sharing. It took me a long time, until maybe 6 years, sharing aspects of my life with my other lawyers, colleagues, and counterparts in other firms. Gary will know because he was spammed by my emails, but I did a very large leukemia and lymphoma fundraiser, and I shared very personal stories. And I realized later on, it just made my relationships better with these people. So anyways, just to digress, sorry, but I do think that is a fundamentally important component of all aspects of our profession, not just vis-a-vis the people who are buying our legal services. In terms of in the firm supporting business development, there are kind of three things that I always find we focus on. And one of those is providing easy platforms, right? So one example is I might not take every junior to the SABA conference in North America because it's expensive. It's like $6,000, all in everything. That's expensive. But what I will do is take them along to lunches and other events. And our firm decided several years ago that we would create a really like no stress event only for young professionals. And it was started becoming an annual thing because the first year over 1,000 people came, and it became the Young Professionals Networking Cocktail Reception. Our firm, if you knew anybody downtown that was a young professional, I think it was within like 24 to 40, who was working downtown, you wanted to invite to this party, they could come and have a cocktail on A&B's dime. We just wanted people to meet other people, and in an organic fashion, just meet people, make friends. We're not going to be stressed if you don't come up with a deal from this. Nobody's looking at it from that perspective. And it became an annual event because everybody told us how much they enjoyed meeting other people and just building. And that was like soft, support networks to create the platform. The second part is exactly what Carol said. Not everything is going to work for everybody, right? Be creative. And I can remember a story many years ago. One of my female colleagues and partners now asked me, she said, Aaron, you do BD so well. And I said, I just do what I like to do. And it just happens that other people like it too. She said, but I struggle with this because I don't like to play golf and stuff like that. I said, I can't stand golf. I'm terrible at it. Love walking the green, but I'm not good at it. But then I said to her, I said, okay, I was like, I got 15 minutes. Let me do a quick brainstorming session with you. What do you like? She said, I like lots of things. I said, can I make an assumption? You're always very well dressed at the office. Can I assume you like to buy certain nice clothes? She said, yes. I said, is one of those things perhaps a purse? She goes, yeah. I go, what's your favorite brand? At that time, she goes, Michael Kors. I said, okay. I said, do they have a store in Yorkville? She said, yes, they do. I said, okay. Can I also assume your friends at other places, like in the banks that you work with, might have similar likings to you? She said, yes. I said, call Michael Kors. Tell them on one day, we're going to reserve the back of your store, and we need you to provide a 10% discount to us. We're going to bring in the champagne, the liquor license, and things like that. And I'm going to invite 10 to 15 young female professionals only to network there. I thought, would that be something that would be interesting? She said, that's brilliant. And I said, that's just as easy as going golfing. You just got to make the proposal for it and be willing to be creative about the types of things. And now that's, turned into bicycling is a really big thing because that's, much more popular amongst the current generation of folks in the professional networks. But there will be other things and lots of things. You just have to be creative about it. The last thing I would say is, create the platforms, be unique in providing opportunities in those platforms. And the final thing is be very supportive. Just like Carol was saying, I often love suggesting my colleagues for speaking engagements elsewhere. One, it builds rapport with me and Gary, and then I don't actually have to speak there. Someone else does who's much smarter than me and better at that thing can look way better than me. And it also is nice because at the end of the day, they're part of my firm and I like to see them successful and I want to see them do well. And, I would either recommending your colleagues, or what I really like to do, I don't go to a single event if I can alone. I like to go with somebody. And I just say, come with me to this thing. I swear to God, you don't have to do anything. I'll do all the talking if you want. I literally want to just introduce you to all these people because you're 20 times smarter than me. You're the one who actually closed this transaction. I want them to know that you were the one that did all the work and that you were the one who was able to get the closing done. And I think that really helps just take away the edge on some of these things and build confidence in some junior lawyers to then be willing to do it themselves next time around.
These are great practical tips, Aaron. I love that. I love the example you gave about the Michael Kors because it's true. What's interesting is it feels to me that it's natural to you to do BD, but it's not for every lawyer, right? Heather and Chad, do you remember your first few years in practice in private practice. Do you feel like you got the support from your firm to know how to do BD? And without throwing them under the bus, but any things that they would have done, they could have done maybe to help you. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I really like Erin's example of how the firm set up a young lawyer networking opportunity. So having that gives them experience to do it later on in the career, and as well builds that network there. So if you're a junior level lawyer, you're meeting managers and associates at other firms, and they'll grow at the same time as you. So by the time they're in the level where they can hire you, they already know you and you have 5, 6, 7 years of relationship to rely on. So I like that. And I guess not a lot of firms do it. Like, I haven't really seen it being done, but McCarthy's did hold a really great event where they brought all of their summer associates and students, where in association with their diversity program, they hosted their Black associates to come meet Black in-house counsel. So that was a cool merging of diversity, giving an opportunity to students and in-house counsel to meet lawyers who are new and build that relationship. So doing unique activities like that, where you're able to incorporate your firm's goals, your firm's priorities, and as well allow in-house counsel to meet new lawyers who will be the juniors actually working on the files or doing the reviews. So I think that's a really good opportunity too.
That's great. That's great. Chad, any thoughts to close on that topic, or no, we're good?
I thought my experience was, it was great that the firm gave a budget for it to young lawyers, because it created that thought process early that this is something you should do. So I thought that was great. I think, and it goes back a little bit now, so it's probably more structured now, where folks have thought through it like Carol and Erin have. But one thing that I liked that they were both talking about is a little bit more of the focus about how you're going to show junior people how to do it. Like, for me, I was always okay talking to people, but especially if you show up in a place where people are much older than you, they know a lot more about the industry than you. And if you don't feel like there's an idea of how that senior person is going to like bring you to that event, if you're just like there and kind of like dropped off, like I drop off my daughter at daycare, then you're kind of just like, I don't know, you don't really feel like even what's your place, even if you are confident. So I think that kind of more proactive, like thinking and communication about like, come along, it's going to kind of look like this. It's going to feel like this. We'll see these types of folks. They're kind of into that. I'm going to introduce you like this, and I'm going to be, very celebratory about your efforts. Like, that kind of breaks down, first of all, the mystery about what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and it gives you a bit of a framework of how you might do it yourself. And so I really liked kind of those thoughts that they were both sharing, and that would have been a good one, I think, too, for me back then.
And boy,
sorry, go ahead.
No, just one thing I wanted to say. The one mandatory thing because I see some business development and marketing people from law firms here, is, first of all, just do it. Like that, the first thing for young lawyers, especially in the age of coming out of 2 years of COVID, some of them would have started as associates in the middle of COVID or briefly before, and some during it. And so it's a skill and that needs to be sharpened, much like your legal skills. You need to know how to network and develop relationships with clients. And because it doesn't come naturally to everyone, like the audience that we have, or like our panelists here, you're all serial networkers, whether you do it online or in person. These are skills, and I know this came up here, but one, you need to make sure they do it. Two, to make sure that there's support systems around it. And three, assign mentors that can take them the way Aaron does it with some of his colleagues. Because otherwise you are going to be like Chad's daughter at daycare, where it's like, okay, you figure it out. And not all of them learn this, because they're not taught how to do this. Law school is not good about business skills and about networking skills. There should be a networking and adding business value class in law school. And Chad will teach it once it's available.
And I just wanted to add one other point. We talk about business development as though it's always something that's outside the scope of the everyday. But another opportunity, especially for more junior lawyers, is to demonstrate leadership on a file. So we just got a new file yesterday, and the in-house counsel asked us to sort of summarize. And immediately I said, well, why don't you do this and let it go out under your name? Like, it doesn't need to summarize and have me send it. Let you start to be the face of this relationship. And because I think that will be really good. And if you want me to look at your draft because you're uncomfortable, that's fine. I'm happy to do it. But otherwise, you should go out there. Briefing at the end of or during a file. I'll meet with some of my colleagues, and I'll be like, okay, well, why don't you give the briefing? It doesn't have to be me. I will be there. They'll see my face. If they have a question, I can answer it if you don't know it. But why don't you feel like, go out there and you do the briefing, and let's talk about it in advance so we know that you're going to cover all the key points, but then go do it. And you know, in some cases I've had pushback, like, I'm not ready yet, I'm not comfortable, in which case it's, you know, it's fine. But I really think it's important to remind people, you know, you wouldn't be here if you weren't great. You know, I know already as a starting point, you're great. So have that confidence to go out there and sort of harness the relationship, because I will do it from my end, but this is a great opportunity for you to show who you are and to stand up and really show what you know during the course of a file. You don't need to sit in the background. You can absolutely play a critical role on this file. And in fact, you should. In fact, I should be the one that's, you know, at different points in the file, depending on obviously the specificity of it, I should be the one that's stepping back a little bit. You need to lead this.
Just one quick thing I wanted to add to both what Gary said and Carol said there. One thing that and which funny enough came up last night in my after dinner with my friend was, you know, he said, you make things look easy sometimes. And I said to him, I said, business development itself is not necessarily easy. The skills that get you there, we've been trained to have them since we were kids. I said, you went to school, you went to recess, you learned real quick who's the guy kicking the ball at you and who's kicking it with you. And you figured out who you're working with. I said, those skills of making friends on the soccer field or in the, you know, gymnasium and things like that are the exact same things that we do now. And I always try and tell the juniors, you have all the skills. Don't get, you know, ahead of yourself now. You do have all the skills. What's different is that elementary school, high school, university was a structured process that was designed to help you make those friends. Structure is gone now. Now it's about re-implementing it to re-engage those skills that you spent a lifetime learning. And sometimes the firm can help with that. Sometimes organizations like the OBA, the CBA, SABA, FACL, CABLE, the CMLA and stuff like that, they help with that. But just reminding people that you already know what to do, but you will need a new structure for it, and you'll have to be a little bit cognizant. I think it really helps them sometimes think, let me just find that structure. I'll join the OBA. Like I always tell people, join the OBA sections. Super low-hanging fruit, easy way to meet other people and get on a board and get engagement and start sharpening your skills.
Okay, and I know that I'm pretty sure we were going to wrap that up, but you just made me think of one other thing that resonates with what Chad says. Junior lawyers are also very nervous about LinkedIn and social media, which I understand. I was too, and I absolutely understand it. So I have on occasion reached out to somebody like a colleague, and I've said, this would be great to post about. Do you want to post about it? If you're nervous about it, do you want me to help you co-write that post? I can like it and we'll make sure everybody shares it so you have that support of the firm. But like, to get used to posting, I literally like co-wrote a post for somebody to post to LinkedIn because I want that person to start getting the comfort to raise their own profile. I can see that they're nervous. They had identified LinkedIn as an opportunity, but they weren't really using it. And so, you know, you can't handhold too much. Like, I honestly do believe we are adults. We need to like go out there and do our own thing. I'm not suggesting that you're going to handhold someone through everything, but sometimes it's just the first, right? It's just like, just to get started, and then you will go off and do your own thing. If you need someone to co-author your posts every day, that's never going to fly. But just, you know, once in a while to give that idea, like, this would be great to tweet about. You should go ahead and do that. You know, that it helps. I think, I hope. Anyway, that's my addition.
No, I think it's great because you have to think about both building the relationship in person, but also online. And to Chad's point, like you know, if you're going to say that you're a tech lawyer, you're a lawyer supporting tech companies, and you have zero presence on LinkedIn, it doesn't look great. And there's a lot of lawyers that have zero presence on LinkedIn. They have like partner at such and such firm for the last 20 years, and there is nothing else right on their profile, and it doesn't look great. And it also, like, you have to learn to differentiate yourself. I'm French speaking, sometimes I can't pronounce some words, but you have to do it, right? Like, you just have to do it. And so the one thing that I wanted to also just say before, there's one topic I'd love to talk about, it's fees and billing model before we close off the session. But the one thing, and my thought that I had when I was listening to everybody talking is, myself as a junior lawyer, when I was told, go do BD, I thought, oh my gosh, I have to go meet someone and bring the business back. Like, that was how I understood it. And if somebody had taken the time to say, just build relationship, just go chat to people and just be top of mind, so that when that person thinks about calling, they're like, oh, I heard Paula she's doing this and that. Just be top of mind. That would have just removed a lot of stress in my life, I think, if that's what they did. And a colleague of mine actually one day went on a journey to say, I want to have 100 coffee with other companies or founders or whatever by the end of the year. And I think that's a great objective. It's like, you're just going for coffee, you're just getting to know that person. And they made that a personal objective. It could be 20 coffees if 100 is too much, but it's easy to do, right? And it doesn't feel as overwhelming. So little tip. I want to use the last few minutes to talk quickly about fees and billing model, and kind of the link between the two. And I'd love everybody's thoughts on that. Can we leverage some creative fee buildings and arrangements to build strong relationship with clients? Whoever wants to jump in first. Carol, you're unmuted. Oh, Chad, who was that?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of this, but I'm a big fan of it on two ways. So I think where we've broken this conversation is it's starting to feel like clients are trying to take advantage of firms. And I think that if that becomes the essence of this conversation, it's never going to happen, because why is one party going to feel like they're going to be victimized? And so here's what I say as a client is like, I am happy to pay you more than what you think you're going to charge me for lots of types of work. I will pay you more for that. And I don't care how long it takes you. If it's less time, even better for me. So I'm happy to pay you more than you want to charge me for work that takes you less time, if that work is of value to me. And value also means your expertise. Maybe it even means you're a young lawyer, but you came out of like an engineering background or whatever background, and therefore you know more about patents. And like, you as a human, your full value, the way you work with me is value to me. And so if your total value proposition is high, and you can do things quickly because you're an engineer and you know about patents because you're on that side of the business and you can do it quickly, massively valuable to me. And you can give me a fixed fee sticker price for that is probably way more than the amount of time in that moment it took you to do. Valuing yourself in the moment it takes you to type on the keyboard is a broken model. And I am happy to pay you more than that. Conversely, I am not happy to pay the same rate for administrative work as valuable work. It makes no sense to me. And so if I'm on the other side of it, and I have vendors that are all kinds of vendors, not just legal service provider vendors, they give me fixed prices on things with parameters and assumptions, and I don't know how long it takes them to do each thing. And if there's things that come outside of the scope, then those are things that get rescoped either into a fixed price or into like a time and materials model. And so, you know, if it takes you 5 minutes to do something that's really valuable to me and that costs a reasonable amount of money because it's important, happy to pay that. Because for me as a user and a deployer of that information, I don't get asked, how long did your advisor take to give us this very valuable piece of information that changed the strategy of what we're doing with this project? Nobody cares. They care about the value. So if I'm on the legal side of it, on the service provider side, I'd want to make a lot of money based on my total value for the least amount of effort typing on a keyboard in that moment, and I'd want to charge for it and I'd deserve it. And as this client, I'd pay for it. And I do. I tell my advisors to charge me for that stuff when they give it to me, because it's a two-way street. If they feel like all I'm trying to do is nickel and dime them, then I'm not creating a good relationship as a client. So they should charge me more when the value's high, and I don't care how long it took. Faster is even better.
Love that. Any thoughts on that, Carol, Aaron, Heather?
So we are really trying to use different kinds of models that will work for our clients. So we have the advantage of having a lot of flexibility in the way we bill. I personally hate the docketing every moment, but also I'm in an area where I have more certainty around what the deliverable looks like. So like litigation, when I was at McCarthy's as a litigator, that's a lot harder to do. Whereas in the work that I do now, it's much easier to put parameters and to offer that kind of fixed fee billing. And so that's what we prefer to do. We also, on the consulting side, we have subscription programs. So it's like a year-long subscription. It's specific, but you can tailor components of it whether it's privacy, like building up privacy capacity for organizations, offering a suite of policies, advisory work. Like it's a well-defined program. Same on the cyber, and now we're going to come out with the AI program shortly. So that's another model that we like, because for the client, it's predictive billing, and for us, we know what the program looks like, but we get to tailor and we get to learn about the client over a year, which is amazing. So those are some of the things that we are doing to try to, you've got the fixed fee and the cap fee, you're all these different models, and it's great and I like them, but we're really trying to identify how are we going to provide what clients need in a way that is as predictable as possible, so that we're not always in a position where we're sort of arguing over, bills. And in fact, we don't do that. We don't really have that very much. In addition, we apply our own judgment in the sense of what Chad is talking about. So in the AI space, it's very emerging. It's not terribly saturated. And, we've spent an enormous amount of time, and I personally have spent an enormous amount of time building up the entire network around what AI law and AI compliance, AI governance looks like. So when I come sit at the table, I'm not just talking as a lawyer. I've done the policy work, the multilateral organizations. I know the startups in the city. I know the startups across the country. I know what's happening in the US and the EU and the UK. Like, I know what's going on. I've got my finger in all those pots. So when I sit down with you, I am bringing all of that to bear with my feedback. So to Chad's point, that's valuable. And that's not time you're going to capture ever in $500 an hour or $1,000 an hour. That's where you really think about, how am I going to help you navigate this very challenging period as you get to a place where you feel like you're delivering sort of responsible and compliant technology. I'm going to bring the entire world to bear on that advice. And that is obviously at a premium. That's a higher value service.
That's great, Carol. Love that. So we're at the end. I wanted to ask everybody for their top 3 tips on BD, and we're not going to have time. So I'm going to throw a quick change to this. Is one tip. If you had to give one tip, and it's going to be 30 seconds per person, why don't we start with Aaron? One tip.
Plan. Plan. That's it. Whether you have to put a pen to a piece of paper and do it, or you like using a computer or Excel or whatever it is, plan. Not a year goes by I don't write down something on a piece of paper about what I want to achieve that year. Whether it's personal, professional, it doesn't matter. Put it down. It's accountable to yourself. Get a piece of Scotch tape and paste it to wherever you need to. The bit behind your computer, the front of your computer, your forehead, doesn't matter. But look at it. Contemplate that plan, recontemplate that plan and action it. But it doesn't start without a plan. Everything in business development is fundamentally the same.
There you go. Heather.
I would say stay visible and accessible. Like, for example, I just got a hello message from one of the lawyers who's on the program right now saying hi. So, hey, Corey, but good having those touch points and staying out there and accessible.
Great. Chad?
I would say consistent selflessness, whether that's in person or online. Scarcity mindset's dead. Information, humanity, tips, sharing, curiosity, humility, all those things fold into selflessness. I think the more consistent you are with selflessness online and in person, the more successful the bonds you'll create.
That's great. And Carol, maybe to close it off?
I'll close it off with know yourself and play to your strengths. I think that's your best bet.
Love it. Well, thank you. Gary, do I pass it over to you to close it off?
Yeah, so just wanted to thank everyone for attending. I appreciate you making the time. And I had asked this panel before that if they were willing to chat offline with any of you, and they were more than happy to the bringing it to the selflessness that we talked about and the consistency of doing business development. So please reach out. This will be available, so you can, for any of the colleagues that weren't able to join us today, they can watch it afterwards. And let us know if you like these, and we can try to do more of these. I think the groups and our panel today was really genuine and added a lot of value. So thank you all for making the time. And thank you, Duncan Milstead and Laura Rosero from the Alexa team for helping with some of the logistics, as well as Andrew for supporting this, and the LMA Canada for being a co-host for today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, everybody.
Thanks, Gary.
everyone.
Thanks, Paula.
Okay, thanks. Bye.